Ferney Muñoz with Wireless LAN Professionals. Open roaming, Passpoint. Passpoint is so easy and so simple that I just need one slide. It starts with a non-AP station that connects to an SSID that is in an AP, and with some local infrastructure, it forms the AMP. Of course, that SSID needs interworking information element that advertises the A and type, if it's settled or if it's free. It also has emergency services, or if it's unauthenticated emergency service accessible, if there's internet access on that network. Also, if there are additional steps required, there's emergency services and group type and the venue and the HESSID. And through GAS, then you get an ANQP that will also include the RCOIs and the NAI realms and the IP types. Well, it can be TLS or TTLS. It can be non-IP for the inner side, PAP, CHAP, MHAP, and if it's cell phones, it can use IP SIM or IP USIM, or you can use a token. The most common one is the certificate. It could also be IP AKA, and thanks to the 3GPP that keeps everybody in line, there's a PLM ID that is formed by an MCC, and it also has an MNC to identify the operator. And the device is going to have an IMSI, and then through that, we're going to have an IDP that is going to be a broker that is going to provide resolution services and help you find your home radio servers. It could be IPsec or RADSec, but it's secure because it will pass all the radio attributes and the robustness of QoS mappings as well, trying to maintain the quality of all of these. And once all of that goes through, you get an access accept, and then you're in. That's it. It is that simple. And this is how my mind was when I started working with this. So by no means I'm a Passpoint expert. But it all boils down to authentication. In a network, how are we going to authenticate users or devices? Well, we start with open authentication. Not secure, not cool, but it's easy. It's fast. You just get people in. So if we have PSK, which, we use it everywhere. It's not good for enterprises. So in enterprises, we don't use PSK. Yeah, we wish. We have it everywhere. Unfortunately, it's not secure. OWE kind of like provides a little bit of alternative for open, using Diffie-Hellman exchanges for creating encryption. This does not provide authentication whatsoever. It just provides a little bit more than open, but it's still open. So anybody can be there. With SAE, we have a more robust mechanism to authenticate. Kind of replaces PSK, but it's still not the ideal. Moving up into the security space, then we'll have TLS, and then by having radius, and using all of the 802.1x framework, we will have a more robust enterprise solution. So this works great. That's the ideal, is to have a way to authenticate and authorize users in a network. But not everybody has this infrastructure. Okay, but let's say you do have this infrastructure. So let's say you are an educational institution, and then you have all of that infrastructure, and you have servers, and you have radio servers, and you have everything to comply with security and just provide what you need. What if there is another institution? So what happens if we're going to have a big gathering, and now students from the blue institution come to the red institution? How are we going to authenticate them to the network? Should we create an open SSID for them to connect easily? PSK? Nah. Captive portals? Probably not. But wouldn't it be nice then if we could establish a secure connection between our radio servers? And then we can verify if the blue guys ask for access to a network. We check our local radio server and say, like, I don't have you here, but I have a relationship, a trust relationship with another entity that will verify and see if you are okay to get in. So those are the principles of edge ROM. This is, I don't know, early 2000s, I think, when they came up with this solution, which is great. So now, regardless of where you are, if you are part of that group, then you will be able to authenticate wherever you are, without creating local accounts and having unsecured networks and all of that stuff. So at the same time, the cellular networks, we have the third generation partnership program. 3GPP is like the IEEE for us in Wi-Fi. They create standards and regulate all these mobile network operators. And to identify these mobile network operators, they're going to have these PLMN IDs. The PLMN is a number that is combined of the mobile country code and the mobile network code, so that each carrier will have an identifier wherever they are, unique. On the client side, the phones are going to have an international mobile subscriber identity, an IMSI, and then that's going to be the identifier of that device. But guess what? They also had to deal with what we have to do. How are we going to authenticate these phones wherever they are? So they also have similar things like we have, IP TLS and stuff. They have IP SIM. The SIM is a subscriber identifier. It's a module. It's the SIM card. We nowadays talk about eSIMs, but it's just a SIM card that has the identifier of the device and the identifier of the operator. The newer version is IP AKA, and there is an IP AKA prime. They have to deal with that management of keys, going back and forth. How are we going to make sure that these guys are legit and they are okay to be in the network? Here's where Passpoint comes into play, because it was late. I'm so happy to be telling you about this new technology. It's actually not new. This is like 12 years old. So they say, okay, what if we do what the EduRoam guys do, that they allow people from other networks to authenticate in your network? So if I have people from the cellular come to the network, then I would be able, using the same principle, to authenticate them against their home authenticator. So with this, we have the access network provider. That's going to be the network that is letting devices and people connect to your network, but they don't belong in your network. They belong somewhere else. So they authenticate against the identity provider. So I'm just going to answer some of those acronyms that we saw on the screen. There's no time for everything. That was a 3-day class we had, and we're going to compress it here in 30 minutes. And hopefully we'll have a better understanding of Passpoint by the time we're done. So if I'm going to establish a relationship with an IDP, let's say T-Mobile, then if I am a venue, let's say the Hilton Hotel, then you'll have to establish that relationship with them. And then what if you want to add AT&T as well to the party and be able to authenticate people from AT&T in that network? Then I'll have to establish a relationship with them as well. What if I'm a school district in Utah and then I want to have the ability to have people come in with their phones and authenticate? So I would have to establish a relationship with every provider out there. So that's when brokers or proxy hubs like American Bandwidth come into play, that they go through the hassle of dealing with all those big boys out there and come into an agreement, say, hey, let's establish a relationship, and then we establish a relationship with American Bandwidth, and then they will take care of authenticating against the IDPs. So if we have now devices coming from different carriers, going through the broker, they are going to be sent wherever they need to go for authentication, and then they go through a process of verifying that, yes, that person is good, that the account is valid, that they are not behind on their bill, and that they can authenticate to a local network. Okay. This is the graph you saw earlier this week. The guy showed it. This is kind of like what it is. You have the AMP on the left, on the other left, yeah, on the left. Just looking at this the other way. And then you are going to have a proxy hub that is going to be forwarding those radius requests and taking care of that. Simple enough. Once those devices, those phones, authenticate in our network, in the AMP, then they're going to have an anonymous user. So don't worry, your name is not out there in the blank. There's going to be an anonymous account. We don't know who it is. We don't keep track of anything. And then they're going to have the 3GPP network domain. And then notice that there is an MNC and an MCC number in it. So if we look at these numbers and the table that we saw previously, we match the mobile country code 310 with the mobile network code 260, and that's T-Mobile. And the same thing, the user at the bottom, 410, 310, 310, 410, that's going to be AT&T user. So far, so good? Okay. Shut up, Eddie. So, we have the Wireless Broadband Alliance say like, wouldn't that be cool if we could do the same thing but without cell phones? Because what if I don't have a cell phone? Then if I don't need AT&T and T-Mobile device, what if I don't have a device like that? What if I have a laptop or a tablet or some other device that doesn't have a SIM card in it? So wouldn't it be nice if we can do the same thing, but just authenticate networks against networks, and then people will become members of this consortium, this federation, and then they're going to have ways to identify themselves in the federation with the RCOIs. Those are the roaming consortium organizational identifiers. It's just a MAC address, okay? They get that from the IEEE. They just get another MAC address that identifies them uniquely worldwide. And using dynamic peer discovery through DNS, they will find their way to wherever they are. That's the map that Bruno was showing us earlier this week, that any restaurant, any shop, Home Depot, if you walk into Home Depot, spend most of my time there hanging out. That's my mall. So you walk in and then you're like connected to the network automatically. No need to click. I mean, not always it works, but you're connected, right? Kind of like here. We've been testing. We're testing this the first time. And this is the other slide that we saw earlier this week, trying to show how IDPs, the ones that provide the identity wherever you are, will join this federation, and then by us providing that service, you'll be able to find home, wherever home is, and just be connected to the network. So with eSIM, we had the SIM card with the IMSI and the PLMN ID, so you know the identifier of the device, or the person carrying the device. But then, how about for these guys? Then we download profiles in our devices. What's in those profiles? Well, same information. We're going to have the RCOIs kind of like pointing to those places, and then there's going to be hashed information in there that is going to point in that direction. So how is that's going to happen in our network? That's the important thing. We hear how it works, but now, like, how do we configure it? Well, it's very simple. You would create a network, just a WLAN, and then you're going to specify that you're going to have .1x enterprise authentication. And then you're going to enable Passpoint, and you're going to enable or choose the operators that you're going to be authenticating against. And then you add the domain names and the RCOIs, and then you're going to add some network access identifiers, realms. That's just like the domain name for those providers, and which IP types do they use, and if they have other types of authentication, they'll be listed here. Some of them will give you, like they are IP AKA, so you just choose that as the mechanism you're going to be using. And then you add the RCOIs, and then you add the venue, and then you add the authentication servers. You're going to have an account with them, and then they're going to give you ports, and they're going to give you a shared secret. And that's the robustness that you're going to have, is that you're going to have some unique identifiers, not just a username or a password that is on a sticky note on the wall. You're going to have enterprise authentication wherever you are. And then you add accounting servers, and then what are you going to see in the beacon? Because after all, it's just a Wi-Fi network that you just created. So in the beacon, there are going to be some new elements. Those information elements, this is not new. So what next? Okay, I'll get there. At the beginning, you're going to have everything just like a beacon because it is a beacon. And then there are going to be some new information elements in it, like the ANQP. This is part of the generic access service, GAS, that will let the device, when it gets the beacon, know that, hey, I offer ANQP services, and here are the RCOIs that I have, and then I have these elements, and here's where it specifies if the network is free, or if there's a charge, because some people make a living out of this. And then if there's emergency services accessible through this network, and if there's the unauthenticated emergency services, that alert that you get, like that weather or something, knowing that if somebody's inside your building, it will be able to receive those notifications even if you are not authenticated to a network. So there are also some vendor-specific elements, like the Wi-Fi Alliance. After all, this is the Hotspot 2.0 is the beginning of this, and this is the Wi-Fi Alliance that developed that based on the 802.11u amendment to the standard. So all these elements are now in the beacon. Now let's talk tools, because now you have a network that does Passpoint. How do you validate that? Well, besides, like having users try to connect and failing or not failing. But tools is one of the important things because, as you've heard many people say this week, you have to make sure that your network is good, in good standing. Well, any tool out there can show me beacons. Not all of them will show me the right channel widths, like, with ECA, how I don't know if that has been fixed, but you have an 80 megahertz wide channel that shows you that it's a 20, kind of a big problem out there. So basic stuff like a beacon, anybody can do, but then how could I see if the network was advertising the RCOIs and the ANQP and all those fields were there? So I couldn't find any other than CIDOS, not because I'm a CIDOS trainer now, but this one helped me identify not only if it was a Passpoint network or not, but also I could have the information about the AKMs that I would be handling, and also it will identify the ciphers and give me that information, not just WPA3, because there are different ciphers that you can have under WPA3. So a lot of tools just show you if it's WPA2 or WPA3, but that's about it. Also, if you go to the details, it will show you the network, and even better, it will show you the security config, and if it is Passpoint ready, it will show you what are the RCOIs that Passpoint network is offering. And yes, if you have transition mode, another thing that I didn't find in other tools is that they just show you one or the other. This one shows me both easily. Then I need to be able to validate that my network is ready for that. After all, it's Wi-Fi. Years ago, I actually was at a conference in Colombia, and Tiago Rodriguez, the president and CEO of the Wireless Broadband Alliance, was there. And that was like, 2017 or 18. And he was talking about this cool thing they were going to put access points in like Times Square and just have people authenticate regardless of what part of the world they came in. They will just be connected to a Wi-Fi. I think he was talking about this open roaming thing. I didn't know what that was at the time. And I told him, like, really? That's really cool. And where are you going to place APs in Times Square in 2.4? Because it's already saturated. Where are you going to place access points in 5 gig? So after all, it's Wi-Fi, and you have to have the network tuned correctly with the channels available, and how are you going to use them? Because you need voice-grade Wi-Fi. You need to be able to map all of the DSCP values on your network and match it with the user priorities that you're going to have in the air. And then let me just show you a little bit about the other part of the tool, because open roaming is here. We've tested it in Europe. We testing it here now. And one of the tools that I've used all along to do this process has been Adrian Granado's tool, just to get all the screenshots and kind of verify that indeed all of those fields are in the air. And this is really cool. But then the problem is this is just standalone. See, I can see the ANQP, the advertisement stuff in there. And then I can also identify this vendor-specific, the Wi-Fi Alliance information element. And then we can also look at the roaming consortium information. But this is right here, right now where I'm standing. That's what I see. So one of the big challenges that I had at the beginning was like, how do I go in a building? Just make sure that I have this open. Of course, I rebooted, and now I don't have my stuff open. Let's make sure this works. I got plenty of time. How am I doing? Man, this is the first time I don't go over my time. Yeah. Okay. Just make sure I got this in here. And I was not going to do demos in here, but hey, I have a couple of things that I need to show you. When you're doing a survey, you want to know not just what you see where you're standing. Like I did this survey the other night, and I want to be able to get an access point. Just make this small, and I'll make it big again, and identify things about that access point. If I want to search, for instance, if I want to look at the overview of my network and look for a specific SSID, like WLPC Passpoint, then I'll see how many radios are advertising that SSID and what type of security they're going to have. The other thing is, let me just come over here, look at the access points that are advertising that SSID, and right here, it will show me that that access point is indeed an access point ready access point that is advertising these ARCOIs. See, now we know what ARCOIs are. And isn't that cool? So I can switch also and look at the details for that network. Just make that bigger. There we go. Is that better? All right. And then it will help you identify what security suite you're using and what ARCOIs are being advertised. Because that has happened, and this is how we identified that we were advertising some ARCOIs that we didn't need in here. So this will help you tremendously. Now, where was this Passpoint stuff when I was at the school district? Because this is one of the big challenges that we face. We had Wi-Fi inside, but as soon as you walked into a building, your cell phone coverage would die. And then we complained to the operator. Say, the cell phones don't work in the building. And they will look at us like, ain't that a bitch? What if I sell you a DAS? $4 per square foot. Yeah, we don't have the money. We're a school district. Okay? I will sell you microcells. Remember those? We had them like all over plugged in. You needed an Ethernet port to plug it in, and then you needed to have, one near the window to get the coverage and then pass it in. People disconnected them, and it was a big nightmare. So my question, now that I kind of understand a little bit about this Passpoint stuff, because this is not new, this has been around for a while, we're like, wouldn't it be nice if they had done that? Because they knew about it. A lot of people have been using this for a long time. Why didn't they let us do this Passpoint stuff back then? Well, because they rather sell us DASs or sell us microcells. But then, now that this is probably becoming more of a thing, they're kind of flexing the arm a little bit and letting us use like brokers like American Bandwidth to do this type of service. We did a conference in Utah. We enable MIST, which is the easiest one to configure Passpoint on. We enable the service, and within 5 minutes, we had about 120 devices connected to a network. Nobody knew about it because as you walk in, that happens automatically. You're not going to have users trying to identify the network and click on the network and going to a front desk and asking for a password, having somebody be the sponsor and send an email and receive an email and trying to authenticate and post the password somewhere or giving business cards. It's easy and it works. We have transferred to this, we'll put this service in several school districts in Utah already. My home Canyon School District where I used to work, it has Passpoint now. And then other districts like Provo and Wasatch, and we're moving to many other places that not only we're putting Passpoint, but we're also enabling all these entities with these buildings to have cell phone coverage inside their institutions. You need a broker. American Bandwidth has helped us a lot. They help us in Prague. Same thing with the Wireless Broadband Alliance. Bruno and these guys have been my teachers on this because I had no idea. I thought it was as complicated as my one slide that explained Passpoint. But now I know a little bit more, and luckily we had a group of guys that took the authentication, the Wi-Fi authentication boot camp earlier this week. Well, that was like last week, huh? And now we're trying to show that it's not that hard. See, I know there's a lot of acronyms and kind of scary to look at it, but it's not that hard, trust me. It's just a few steps. Vendors will have different challenges like configuring the firewall ports, because there's going to be some extra configuration there. After all, you're establishing a trust relationship with an organization outside of your organization, and then if it is fixed. But if you're using like the Wireless Broadband Alliance, there are trusted members, and then you're going to be using all of the robustness of the 802.1x standard and using EIP-TLS and EIP-TTLS and EIP-AKA, so it is secure, because that's been one of the concerns of our customers. They're going to come and say, like, is that going to be secure? What if people come and say, like, well, I was just connected to this network and I never requested it, so I'm being abused here? Because they're like, no, we're just extending the cellular service into a building without you noticing. But I did not, well, you sign an agreement with, let's say, T-Mobile. You don't choose which tower to connect every time you get your phone out, do you? And when you're driving or walking around a place, you don't choose which cell phone tower to roam to. No, it just roams automatically. What we are doing is facilitating and making this service easier in a way that when you walk into a building, you roam. Well, you now are offloading your cellular traffic into your network. That's it. Thank you very much.